Well, you've been struggling through I hope you've been struggling through because it's a tough thing to do, figuring out exactly how to deal with Mr. Kilpatrick's comments. That is, it's really tough figuring out what the conclusion is and summarizing the points, and I hope you've spent enough time, because there's something in learning. There's a very important lesson to be learned in doing an exercise like this. But now it's also helpful to take a look. Well, I would go online. You might be the first guy doing the module, so the discussion forum might not contain many other things. But at least if you're one of the first guys, just come back to it later on. If there's some up there, you might want to take a look. But let's also take a look at what I got, my summary out of it, which might be a little bit different than yours. I found in classes that there's a good deal in common, a little bit different. But the first thing was, what was the point of the argument? What is the conclusion of the argument? And the conclusion here being, at least Bush won the debate. I scored it for 12 to 8. I scored it 12 to 8 for Bush. That's where I got that from. It could be that Bush was right. It could be that Bush is the better candidate, and other people had some other some other conclusions, which is just okay, because part of it you're going to find is tailoring what the point of the argument, the conclusion of what he's getting to, is going to be somewhat related to how you or what you formulate as the summary. Now, going through it, I think there are a couple of points, that he makes, which really turn into premises. One of which I think was this itself might have been a conclusion. Some people might have this as a conclusion. Bush was an appealing candidate, and he says a bunch of things that kind of support this. He has that Rule 6, this maxim: don't take yourself too seriously. He said Bush doesn't take himself too seriously. That's what makes the elder Bush an appealing candidate. He was more relaxed. He was more confident. So those are things that he's saying in support of the conclusion that Bush won the debate. Then he has a bunch of things to say about Michael Dukakis's performance. And these things are going to support the fact that Michael Dukakis was not a very appealing candidate. In particular, he doesn't seem to have a sense of humor, and that's kind of the flip side of what he says about Bush. That is, Bush doesn't take himself too seriously, Dukakis does. And he says he was composed and articulate, which are kind of good things, right? Being composed, being able to deal with life as it comes, is a really good characteristic to have. But he seems to be repeating memorized lines. The idea is that the guy's not thinking for himself. He got a prepared speech, and he's basically got it memorized. That's supposed to be something that makes him less appealing. But then, and notice these are down at the bottom of the page, because some other things come later on, but I think they're really more important. One of them being, debates provide an opportunity, as presidential debates provide an opportunity for voters to decide if they feel comfortable if the candidate were president. He says, do you trust him to do the right thing? There should be a question mark after that. And another assumption he seems to be making is that the presidential debate is not for understanding the candidate's position on the issues. He makes some comment, I forgot, it was wheat or corn subsidies. The position on it is not critical. Some people thought the debate, or think presidential debates should be about issues. So here is what I took to be Kilpatrick's point. He thought Bush won the debate. Here are the reasons. Why don't you compare these to what you had? Maybe you think yours are a little bit better. Maybe you think you're a little bit different. Maybe you'd like to change one. I'm sure if this was a two-way conversation, we'd be able to change something. The idea is we're just trying to get a feel for what it is that the commentator, the conservative commentator Kilpatrick, what is he telling us about this presidential debate? Now we're going to move on to looking at Charles Krauthammer's piece.